This takes a minute.
So we're also live streaming, as I remember correctly, right?
Yeah. So, okay, please go ahead. Heather, go ahead and introduce.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Waters. I'm a town councilor here in Manlius, and so honored to be with you all tonight, members of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee and our co-chair, councilor, and deputy supervisor of the town of Manlius, Sarah Bollinger. We are in a process that started originally with working with Barton and LaJudas to develop a very quick overview survey, similar to their other sort of comprehensive plan efforts in other communities. And that's helping us to build a community profile. But through that process, we quickly learned, and in conversation with the steering committee, that we needed to do a deeper dive on a number of issues and spend some real time beyond the 3 listening sessions that we had to kick off our effort, our natural history, our economy, and our environment. We needed to do a deeper dive. So we've been hosting 3 types of engagements and learning opportunities. One is a study group. And so we have study groups on mining and quarries in the town. We have one on stormwater. What's our third, Sarah? Just those 2, right? Are the study groups. And then technology and Indigenous history are other focus groups that we have. And we'll be doing some more surveys as well, some short surveys. And the study groups will allow us to hear from experts and develop surveys. And we hope to have more information in hand to engage folks in our draft comprehensive land use plan recommendations by the spring and bring those to the board. And that will form a plan for us to go forward with for the next 5 to 10 years, we hope, and be a dynamic effort to look at sustainability, look at our infrastructure, and make good choices about and give information to potential developers and investors in our community and people who want to live here and grow here and age here about where that's all going to be best. So thank you so much. Tonight is a chance for us to sort of ask this question of our special guests. What are you sort of most excited about when you think about technology in municipalities and communities? What are you sort of most concerned about? We hope this will inform us and allow us to ask the greater community their ideas. And if you don't mind, I'd like everyone please to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what brings you here tonight.
So Heather, you're going to have to call on people.
Let me do that. Yes. Well, let me first acknowledge the Comprehensive Steering Committee members that are on right now. We have Bill and Bill Kirchhoff, and we have Rick Hall, and Leah Kraus, who are all active and representing our next door community. Bill is, and Rick is representing the village of Fayetteville, and Leah represents the Fayetteville Library and also has a strong understanding about some of the areas north of Burdick Street too, including the areas around Erie Village. So we are so grateful to have a representative from Sustainable Manlius here. Ms. Haynes, thank you very much for being here. And also to have Howie and Sarah here. We need your insights on and your experience, in the field here in considering innovation and technology. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Why don't you go first, Howie, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I'm a retired senior engineering manager from Lockheed Martin. Moved to the town of Manlius 40 years ago to join what would ultimately become Lockheed, retired 10 years ago. Now in retirement, I spend a heck of a lot of time doing STEM outreach and advocacy. I sit on the boards of the Museum of Science and Technology and the Technology Alliance of Central New York. My undergraduate degree was in electrical engineering, and I worked as a software and a systems engineer for 37 years in the defense industry.
Thank you so much. Sarah, do you mind going next?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for considering the Tech Garden. I work in economic development with a specialty in the clean technology sector. At its most basic, I am working with the scientists and engineers that are trying to create the technology to help move us forward to address our climate issues as they stand. So I'm neck deep in terms of where the technology is, the newness, if you will, of this technology within other, as regulated against other sectors, as well as where the policy implications come from. Selfishly, I serve on the DeWitt Town Board, and we're really looking to the town of Manlius to give us a leg up. I chair our comprehensive planning committee, and I'm looking to reinvigorate what that can mean for sustainable DeWitt. But I'm excited to be here, contribute what I'm able to, but I also will be storing some nuggets away. So thank you very much.
Reuse, recycle, repurpose.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Bill and Rick and Leah, are there anything that would you like to introduce yourself and
Sure,
briefly
I'd love
and
to.
just add to what I already said before, maybe?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm Bill Kirchhoff. I've been in the town of Manlius as a homeowner for 35 years. I've been in the coffee industry in many different roles, as I still am. And I just recently took a position yesterday with a small business, SBDC, which is part of the SUNY system, and of which our goal is to help foster new business growth. And I started the next door community with two different neighborhoods, and I see the value in technology to help grow the town of Manlius. I also see the opportunities to become more efficient, both from a sustainable environmental point of view and life gets always busier and busier. We have to find ways for the town to take advantage of new technology to help foster new growth and new business ventures, and to also connect us in different ways that we used to all go to meetings. Now we have to find ways, like through Nextdoor, of becoming more effective and efficient at being part of a community. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much. Rick or Leah?
Sure, I'll jump in. I'm Leah Kraus. I'm the assistant director at Fayetteville Free Library, where I've been working for 13 years. So I did help to get the Fab Lab, the makerspace that the library has there, off the ground. And that's been open for, it's been like a 10-year process where we've been doing, 3D printing and educating the community, providing access to that technology. And of course, but also through the library, like our goal is to really think about technology access and technology education in our community, and making sure as things are moving forward, no one's getting left behind. So that's a concern of mine, or like, I guess, an interest where I'm listening or wanting to, make sure that we have solutions for. And I'm also a resident of DeWitt, so it's nice to meet you, Sarah. And Howie, I wonder if you know my dad, Dan Sopchak. He worked for years at Lockheed, and he retired around the same time as you. So anyways, just nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Leah. That's so the community in action right there. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that leaves me. I'm Rick Hall. I've been a resident pretty much most of my life. I'm retired businessman, and representing the village of Fayetteville, as Sarah had indicated. Or maybe it was Heather, I don't remember, one of you. Anyhow, one question that I have is, are we trying to focus on how to deal and mainstream with current technology? Or are we trying to guess what the technology is going to be 10 or 15 years from now and make sure that what we're trying to do aligns with that? I know that large companies have what they call futurists on their staffs, Coca-Cola and those people, and their job is to, through data, not through, Kreskin type stuff, but come up with where things are going to be. And, I don't know if there's any of those kinds of assets available through the university or through any of that kind of stuff so in other words, if we're gearing up and we spend all our time working on 5G just to find out that 8G is going to be here in 2 years, so I'm not a techno geek, I can tell you that right now, but so that's really kind of a question and just out of curiosity.
That's a fantastic question for us, Rick, and let's put that in there. I mean, one of the things that I think we all want to do is make sure we're not behind the 8 ball here. And if we're preparing for something, we're not, just catching up only to fall behind. But at the same time, municipalities only, often will be responding to opportunities that come from government grants, and those can be slow. Sarah and I were talking this afternoon about the concept of districts, and she mentioned retail. And one of the things I wonder is, what will retail of the future look like? So almost if we look at our different existences now and the trends we see now and the things we're seeing the Tech Garden prepare for or Lockheed prepare for, the policy that the government is setting forth in terms of what green infrastructure looks like and green technology. If we're looking at retail and we see that it's changing, are we going to move to a model, for example, where people buy things online, pick them up, or have a drone drop them off at their house? And how do we intersect with all that? Or what do our curbs need to look like in order to have autonomous vehicles be around? I mean, these are practical matters that if we're investing in new buildings or looking at codes, we want to consider. I would expect that education is going to help lead us, and the school districts are going to help lead us a little bit. And I always feel like the libraries are so good at connecting the dots between what schools are saying we need to be doing and what the community is doing. But yeah, I'm interested in what you're saying. How do we thread the needle between the fact that we don't have futurists on staff, but have general information about what's needed for the future for the next 10 to 15 years, or to invest in that will last a little longer than that. Do you think, Sarah, do you have thoughts about this, about how we might, what we discuss next? Because I'd love to hear from Sarah about what the Tech Garden's perspective and what the city of Syracuse's perspective and Central State CEO's perspective is on all of this.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, particularly since Sarah has to leave early. So let's let her kick off and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm happy to speak as kind of the collective drum for all of those voices, but these are my opinions, right? And again, it's how I'm interpreting what I'm hearing from all of these entities and kind of regurgitating it back to you. But so I think at the crux of all of this right now is something that the pandemic has laid bare for all of us, is that we may have taken technology for granted, but we took it for granted in the single house unit versus a community unit. And that goes across multiple sectors, whether it be the work environment, the school environment, the telecommunications environment. We didn't look at it holistically. So now as we're looking to expand the Tech Garden, we're having discussions about what does it look like and what components are important for us, because we don't, as you said, Heather, we rely upon government grants for the majority of our infrastructure, right? And the word that keeps coming to mind is flexibility and the ability to pivot. And I think that's really where we're going. We're seeing technology going. It needs to be light. It needs to be able to transition from environment to environment. And it can't be such a heavy infrastructure or capital expenditure anymore, because at the rate that we're moving, it will be outdated within just a few years, long before the capital of it is realized. So I think maybe as we move forward, one of the things we store kind of in the back of our mind for the discussion is the ability to have that flexibility and to pivot as needed. That's really what we're talking about in terms of where we're willing to spend our big money now. I think the years, maybe early 90s, it was on those big computer network infrastructures that were anticipated to stay for so long. When I was in the private tech sector, we were going through server rooms at a clipping rate that was alarming for everybody. And then I think the other cost that we need to talk about too is the security of all of it, both the physical structure and then the software aspects of it. That's also been laid bare through the pandemic. They're the hidden costs of what technology looks like in moving our communities forward. If that helps at any point, I think we're really just looking to be able to be flexible and to have technology that will meet the requirements of today, but also be able to position us to move forward as requirements change.
Sarah, thank you so much. Rick, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, if I can find where I can unmute. So Sarah, does the common thought remain that some of these changes from COVID will perpetuate indefinitely through the future? Or, I think Heather brought it up with some of the retail stuff. I went to a little burger place the other day, and I think they have 2 tables in there, and the whole business model is to come and take out. They're not trying to serve people to come in and sit down. So do you see a lot of these changes and tech needs to perpetuate going forward?
That's where our discussion is focused right now. It's around flexibility. When we talk about what the modern workspace looks like, it's now having modular components to it. We're not having those fortified wall structures that are permanent. We're looking at semi-permanent structures. We're looking at the ability to have spacing if needed between folks, have a large auditorium, but if it's not in use or not needed, bringing it back down to much smaller conference rooms. Speaking with these startups and the folks that are in the emerging businesses, the last call that we had, they acknowledged that they don't necessarily need a large office footprint anymore. They're looking to have the capability to house maybe 2 to 3 folks at one time, knowing that the majority will be calling in, even if they are local. The pandemic has also allowed us to extend our employment bank beyond the regional confines of our district. So we're able to now hire somebody from California and know that they'll be able to do their job, and there's effective communication paths already in place now. So I think it's really reimagined what it looks like to be an employer and to show up to work every day. And I think for a municipality moving forward, we need to understand that when it comes to infrastructure and utility support and where we're looking to go for providers.
I would add that a lot of that, by the way, is not new. When I came here in '82, I was managing a geographically dispersed team located in Syracuse, California, and the Washington metro area. I was working from home full time starting around 2005 because even though I worked at Lockheed, I had about 70 people working for me, located in 20 different cities in 14 different states in 4 different time zones, and a total of 0 of them were in New York. So there was no reason for me to come into an office when I had a perfectly good setup at home. So it's a lot of people are trying it now with COVID, but a lot of us pioneers, I've been living in sweatpants for as long as I can remember.
That's great.
What about the concept of the Internet of Things? I know in our household, the Internet of Things world has blown up. Before we might have had a smart thermostat, but now we have a smart thermostat, smart speakers in nearly every room. We have a smart lock. We have a smart doorbell, and all of these things talk to us and talk to our phones through the apps. And we think of security in a different way. I think also about our privacy and learning how to do a password keeper and all these sort of skills that if you were a homeowner, you have a different experience, or even if you're just living in a space, and with cars too, they're changing. You're using machines talking to each other and more often. How do you think that it will impact our community in a suburb and also our municipality?
I think some of this goes to what Sarah was saying about, the need for inexpensive ways to do things going forward. And a lot of what we're going to see differently are going to be enabled really by a couple of different things. Generically, ICT, information and communication technology. Which means that our residents are all going to need access to high-speed internet. The other thing is going to be small, inexpensive sensors. And you can think of the many different ways you can do it, because that's going to give you the flexibility. If I have to go out, somebody mentioned a mainframe before. And oh, by the way, I started programming computers in 1968 back in high school. So, I've been doing this thing a long time. Sarah, I think before we went live, was talking about who thought 30 years ago we'd have, computers in your pocket. And I was like, yeah, I kind of suspected, because I saw it go from this to this. And, that was the next logical step. But, those things, you're not going to want to spend $1 million on a computer for your home, but you might want to spend $5 on a new sensor that gives you a capability. And that connectivity at home. Take a look sometime at your home Wi-Fi and see how many devices are connected. You'd be surprised. If I asked any one of you, hey, what's connected to your internet? You'd probably say, well, my phone and my iPad. And then if you looked at that, I have smart switches. To your point, Heather, I probably have 25 things connected. And at what point will my internet and, where I am, I don't have a choice really. I have to go with cable. There is no fiber available to me. At what point is it going to break? And I won't be able to, to check my email because my heat just kicked in. So that's going to be a major issue, I think, for the town to look into, is ensuring that, all the far-flung corners of the town of Manlius can live like those who are, on the main line, if you will, of the internet. And I don't know, maybe it already exists, but, and sensors are going to allow all kinds of things, from an infrastructure perspective. In retirement, I spend a lot of time, like driving from my house down to Panera's for coffee with the guys. And I get to the little triangle park with a couple of traffic lights there. And, at breakfast time, you people who work are still in the, in your cars going there and holding me up. So why are we not enabling new technologies at the traffic lights to monitor traffic flow? So, why do I have to be the one guy there when nobody is coming in any direction? The traffic light should know, hey, let him go, because clearly he's jonesing for that cup of coffee. So, and then a lot of the things that we're going to do for the town, we want to have more services enabled by, the information or communication technology, but the privacy and the security is always hanging over us. There will always be people who don't want to pay their tax bill on their computer. They'd rather drive down and hand a check to the, to the receiver of taxes. So you're never going to change those people.
So I want to pop in quickly because I will have to be signing off, but I am really looking forward to continuing this discussion. From a municipality standpoint, Howie touched on a really big thing. Again, bringing back to the utilities. Do we continue on the way for internet, our current internet providers, or should we be looking to upgrade to a fiber option? We need to look at what is the emerging technology in that aspect. I believe it was Bluetooth or Blu-ray versus regular DVDs and that kind of fight. Bluetooth or Blu-ray won out, but I think it's looking at to see what is the best, in the intersection of cost versus, the ability to reach all of the tenants within the confines of the town and all of those metrics. But I think foundationally, one of the areas we should be looking for is understanding what those technology utilities will be moving forward. Okay.
You can see I'm older than you, Sarah. I would have said either VHS or Betamax, but
Sarah, thank you
Thanks,
so very
everybody.
much for your time and for staying in conversation with us, and to all of our colleagues over at the town of DeWitt, we say hello and thank you. When it comes to sustainability, we really, really appreciate seeing all the work that you've done. So we've learned a lot from the town of DeWitt. So thank you.
I think one of the things that concerns me, both in terms of privacy and sort of sustainability, is so much information is now in the cloud. So we got rid of those giant server rooms and now everything lives in the cloud. But from the cloud, it actually goes to a more humongous warehouse server room that is managed by some internet provider. And those use incredible amounts of energy. They make air conditioning like crazy, and are vulnerable to some natural disaster happening. And then now we can't even tie our shoes without the internet. So we are totally helpless if our power goes out. So I'm just wondering if there's some things like that, if the municipality has some emergency preparedness role or some other sort of way where we should be thinking ahead for if everything's connected and then it goes dead, we wouldn't be able, there'd be a lot of things that we just plain couldn't do.
the unfortunate thing is the town could put in, diesel generator backup and do all kinds of things, but we are all just, nodes on this network. And if the town loses power, it's nice that the town will be up and running, but it's not going to help me, from the house. So, that does become part of the infrastructural issues as we go more and more to everything, the Internet of Things.
But along that line, Howie, I know that at least in the village of Fayetteville, the equipment that makes the brine solutions that we put on the roads is all controlled by the supervisor, from his phone, and he can look it up and say, okay, well, the mixture's too heavy in salt, so I got to add some water or whatever. And so if that was disrupted, you would physically have to now assign someone to go there. So it's not just an individual thing, and those types of services will become more and more standard on phones and a laptop or whatever it might be. So the security of the system, while we're not going to have 50 cybersecurity geniuses, the security of the entire system is a big deal.
Yeah, and with climate change, we're going to continue to see unusual weather. You talk about the supervisor having to go down and manually do it. I remember, in the Labor Day storm, FM Road was blocked, and I took my car and drove across the lawn in front of Wellwood because that was the only way I could get down the street, quote unquote. So, that becomes an issue too. If we have all of a sudden start having tornadoes and whatever here, we run into physical problems as well as, all the other issues that we've already dealt with or spoke about.
So we have something called the Critical Response Committee that works within the municipalities, and something that I'm taking away as a liaison to that committee is asking about our preparedness from a technology standpoint and a data management standpoint and a power standpoint. And I also think we are all also aware of the needs, the cyber hacking and sort of the security issues that have come up, and the ransomware issues have affected the community. I know they affected the libraries and the school district, and we have new costs around insurance that we have to take out in order to have outside services that protect us from ransomware, and that's a need, and also a planning consideration that we have to keep in mind, I think, for the future.
And with every technology advancement, there's always malicious actors looking to ruin the party for everybody.
I want to bring up a positive side of technology that I think Bill started talking about, but it's this sense of the sense of community, that you can be friends with a person you've never physically seen. You can like you said, Howie, you could work with people in 14 different states and get along just fine. I mean, I think that the sense of neighborhood that the Nextdoor app has developed in terms of people watching out, it's, again, that's a little bit of security, watching out for each other, explaining circumstances instead of neighbors just being mad at each other, understanding. I know a large number of lost dogs have been found that way. So I'm just wondering, Bill, if you could comment a little bit on the sense of the networking that happens using technology that maybe we never would have done if we were just standing on our two legs.
Right. There were so many ways in the past of connecting with your neighbors, and neighborhoods are, they're divided in different ways. And in the Nextdoor community, it opens up a whole world of opportunity for communication, for groups, for connecting, for just finding pets. Like you said, I think that's most rewarding. When I see that somebody's pet has been found because the community comes together, that's sometimes the most rewarding part of Nextdoor for me. And also, I also find out about, things that are happening in the neighborhood, events and such. It's really evolving as it goes. And we rely on, the endorsement of governments to help us grow, because some people still have a misconception that their privacy is going to be invaded by this type of technology. In the 10 years I've been with Nextdoor, I've only had very good experiences with it, and it's grown from a few people to hundreds in both of the communities. So I highly recommend it. I've asked my mayor to jump on and communicate events in the town of Manlius and in the village of Minoan, because paper is expensive and mailing is very expensive. This gives us an opportunity to be more efficient. So I'm hoping it continues to grow in a whole host of different ways that will help the community.
I think that also raises a good point too, because as more and more of these things are done electronically, how do we get meetings and parties in the plaza and all those kinds of things to all the residents? Because there is a faction that are still antiques like me, that don't go into websites all the time and aren't on a lot of these things. So, part of it is pretty cool, because anyone could be watching this, right? This is being live streamed and anyone could be watching, which I think is phenomenal. But there's also a risk of short term, not communicating enough with people that may or may not be on that level of technology.
And I'd like Leah to speak to that, because that's one of the issues with people with technology is, even though it's much cheaper than it once was, it's not free, and not everybody has access.
Right. I was going to say, I definitely, of course, see all of the benefits with, networking, meeting people, communicating that the technology provides. But on the same hand, it can be a much different level. Like it can be isolating at the same time. And that's something that not just for the people who can't use technology, but when we're considering particularly, I mean, I think all of us, but especially thinking about our young people and how technology is affecting their physical health, their mental and emotional health, and social development. I think that's, as a parent of 2 young kids, it's a concern for me. How do we make sure that as we move forward in embracing all of these new formats of socializing and of technology, that we're not doing so at the detriment of our health, our physical and mental and social health, and the more, I guess, real sense of community. How can we take these online communities and translate them, not only not miss people who aren't there, but also take them and kind of adapt them and give them an in-person component, and make sure that like we're taking those more surface level virtual connections and making them into real relationships. That, there's something a lot different ordering a coffee on your phone versus going to the coffee store, in how that neighborhood is going to be and how that community is going to feel. So that's something on my mind, I guess. And even the library's role. A lot of the time people come to the library, like there was, of course, we're in it with technology. We want to help connect people and get them to that stage where they can be connecting with their grandkids over FaceTime or whatever they need to do. But we also have a lot of people coming in looking for the complete disconnect from technology, like parents looking to have, where can I go with my kid where there's no screens, where we're taking a break from all of this. So I think considering spaces and times for the absence of technology is important too.
I so appreciate that. I think the pandemic also put into focus for me as a parent, me as a person, that I'm so grateful for our outdoors. And you run into your neighbors in a COVID safe manner outdoors, and take care of your body, mind, and spirit, outdoors. I remember watching that movie Minority Report. And do you remember when Tom Cruise ran through the tunnel and the sensors could see, they were advertisers, this futuristic time, the advertisers were programming ads just for him and personalizing them. But I can't imagine a time when, just like the town of DeWitt has that sort of very blinky red, not super attractive LED sign with updates that kind of go across it. Maybe there will be a time where there are some sign technologies that allow us to program more attractive looking bulletins, or there's sort of a municipal space where when you're printing a receipt or you're somehow giving updates for people in their everyday life, that we can be fitting in a way, just like that coupon for whatever the item is after you get a Dunkin' coffee, that the ways that we sort of live we're following people and going to where they are for communication services and using the technology to do that. I mean, we know that someone just did a grad school study that they hopefully will be sharing with us, but they were telling me a little bit about it. They are studying the town of Manlius in terms of communication, and did a survey about how people want to get their news, email newsletter. And I thought people were going to say, I want to, see more, I want to get something mailed or whatever. No. And these were people of all different generations that were responding, small sample group. But that's, I don't want us to sort of organize ourselves just around one email newsletter and think that we've figured it out too, in terms of how we're reaching people and staying in contact. Like the woman who was standing on the corner recently with that great big yellow emoji smile, has created a community vibe. And there's this woman who stands in front of lots of spaces in the community with, with this happy sign, and she's dancing around. It's hilarious and awesome and very uplifting. She's doing it in front of Wegmans. She's at the top of the hill in Fayetteville. She's around, and people are curious about her, and she's caused people to be curious. And I think anything that keeps us asking each other questions and engaging with each other, if it's technology driven, great. With anything technology that helps with the human interaction, great.
Heather, you bring up a good point. People are going to be pretty much divided between push and pull communication, right? I mean, you could push the email to me, or I can go out onto a website and look at it, and people probably will tend to go to one over the other more often. I'm a member of the Nextdoor app, but I get the notifications, and it's like, well, I've never owned a pet, so I can skip that lost dog. I'm not looking, but I'm probably missing a lot of other stuff. There must be some way that you can really tailor it down to a level of interest to me.
It looks like
you
Rick
can, and I'd be happy to do a training on all the opportunities. Nextdoor is not ever going to replace live get-togethers. We actually have groups that have started through Nextdoor that meet to hike, for instance. We have groups that are shopping help for elderly people who can't get out to the grocery store themselves. We have groups, Moms of Manoa group, that just talk about, issues in today's rearing of young children, none of which is going to, in any way, shape, or form, eliminate live get-togethers. It's just a way of communicating.
Yeah. And I wasn't thinking
everybody. Right.
No, I'm
if
sorry.
everybody were involved in Nextdoor, I think you could see all the different opportunities from it. It would never ever become a TikTok or it's not designed to become something that is going to distract us from connecting or live get-togethers. It's really an avenue to connect us.
Yeah, and I was just using Nextdoor as an example. I could have just as easily had said Facebook or the Town of Manlius website, or any other way. There's still going to be that, do you get the information pushed or you pull it?
Rick wants to say something.
I guess it's really more of a question. So Howie mentioned some of the climate change and the weather disruptions, and should we create, I don't know if you need another group or whatever, but it almost seems like over time we've got to figure out a way to get all our wires underneath, whether that's fiber optics or whether that's the cable or whatever, and how do we safeguard some of the the communication towers and all that kind of stuff, because you put all this stuff in, and then like Howie said, you have a big weather event. Mm-hmm. And yet we just maybe put in a new big housing development and didn't force all of the utilities to be underground, and it's going to be incredibly expensive and difficult to do on existing, but maybe you've got to start someplace and start safeguarding some of that stuff.
That's a good point. I wanted to follow up on a couple of points that related to flexibility. I heard, and this is maybe science fiction, but I heard that the plan for the travel in space, because space is so limited and precious, is not to bring a whole bunch of stuff, but is to bring a 3D maker. And if you need a part, just make it there in space. So I'm thinking this idea of this lower cost, no inventory, just when you need something, you just make it and it serves your purpose, and then you go on. And I'm just wondering if that's totally science fiction, or if there's something about that concept of, don't keep inventory, just when you need something, make it then.
There is a 3D printer on the International Space Station right now. And I probably a couple of weeks ago, I read that they uploaded from Earth the plans for something that needed to be made and just built it on station. So it's science fact, not fiction.
And I think that marketers are, yeah. And marketers are trying to, it seems like marketers are very much trying to either encourage all of us to want the same sorts of things, made with the same materials. And right now it seems that, cheaper and faster to us is sort of the overriding paradigm. But if the costs are so, if it's cost prohibitive down the line, or if there's a shift to experiences versus things, and there are these cultural things that are happening, I think that it's possible, very possible, that we do go back to we do start seeing sort of a turn towards less inventory and less stuff, the same way that the unique, the handmade, the individual, is pursued. I don't know though. I really don't know. America's trying to figure itself out, right? If we were about everybody being able to get the same status items, and that was a sign that you'd made it and you had a good life for your children, is that going to be the case, in the next couple of generations? I don't know. But it'll make an impact on towns and communities like ours, for sure.
I think you bring up a great point about a sharing society. We don't need, all of us to be in our own little silos with all the different resources, and have garages full of all the things that every house has. I think we need to, think about moving towards a more
sharing that chainsaw. Sharing that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there could be one for the neighborhood, and that would be plenty.
Buy nothing manliest.
Yeah, well, gifting societies are super, super popular right now. I mean, people are, and you look at, fast fashion versus the luxury brands that are getting people to do subscriptions. So last time I went to a really fancy event, I was able to rent a really fancy gown that I wouldn't have purchased otherwise. And it was as great an experience as anything else. And so I do think that private industry is catching up to sort of business models that work with this new way. And so the people behind us, the young people moving into the community behind us, they have grown up with less access to walk places, but they also have had organized sports, for example. So what they want to do in terms of getting to places and using things is also interesting. I was amazed at, I've been in those cities now where there are access points for those scooters and the bikes. And it seems like if we can figure out, based on weather, how to manage some of those items, we'll see an increase in popularity in that kind of more casual transportation. I don't know. But so how do we get ready and make spaces that are efficient? We know that we just got a grant for some charging stations, and we know that the infrastructure around charging is going to change really quickly. And soon you're going to see high-speed charging have access. Another question I have is about mining cryptocurrencies and sort of the resources that those take. And our community needs to think about if we're interested in, what we're interested in terms of space for that. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that it takes a lot of energy. So I'm going to put that down on the list.
Well, I think, we're practically going to being cashless already. And then when you move into cryptocurrency, which I don't understand. You're outside the banking system, which is outside of the protections of the banking system.
Exactly. But we're at the conversation economic development wise in the villages where we're saying we don't need another bank and we don't need another pharmacy, right? And so that's where we are right now with our general developer conversations. We don't even have a list of desired kinds of retailers or shops or services we do want. And so here we are trying to jump ahead and think about which ones we do, but we definitely we're definitely not there as a community.
Well, this sense of the sharing, like ride sharing and those kinds of things. I mean, that's the essential component of a library. So I think if we take that concept, and you've already done that by expanding, it's not just books, you've got, music and computer, you've got the maker lab, now you've got the outdoor space. So the idea of, we have a mental concept of how to share. We just haven't taken it outside the building of the library. And I think that we could look at other ways of utilizing that concept to share the chainsaw. That
we've literally talked about tool lending library. We're starting a musical instrument lending library. Like, yeah, I mean, libraries are very open to, we do lend out like wireless hotspots, things like that. But it's hard to do. We'd love to do more of that type of thing. It's just all new, and it's all just needs to be figured out. And there's a huge education component that comes along with it too.
This is where a lot of the networking apps come in handy. The next door, the buy nothing. You can go on to those sites and say, I just had a tree limb come down. I need a chainsaw for that one thing. And, and I'm seeing it all the time that some friend of ours needed portable heaters the other day. The building lost heat where her company is located. And if she would have collected on everybody that offered, she could have mined for crypto, because there would have been, so much energy being used by the literally dozens of heaters, portable heaters that were offered to her. And clearly not all people she knew. So, that you no longer are limited to going next door to borrow that ladder. You can, go anywhere to borrow a ladder or a chainsaw or whatever. And that's something maybe we need to better advertise, that these apps and websites are there, so that you get back to buy nothing, borrow everything, or rent everything.
It's so fascinating that our conversation about technology brought us back to like an indigenous practice, right? like a sharing and a more interdependent, more communal society. And that's not going to be for everyone, but if we think about what government services need to be about going forward, if it's not just, right now it's making sure you have information about your taxes, you have information about what you're paying for in terms of the roads and your policing, and that the technology changes need to sort of be there for our quality of life, but also why we're a community together. I do think that this raises, I personally think we talk about, the high taxes in our state, for example, but we don't talk about the costs of having all of our layers of municipalities that we do. So I am not someone who is interested in consolidating for the sake of consolidation. As a concept, I think it only has to work, but I do think we need to keep asking ourselves, how do we share within our town too, and with the county and with the state in a way that makes sense. The park police help us when we need their help in Green Lakes, for example. We have an intermunicipal agreement with our highway departments in the villages for plowing and understand, they help each other. And so, but buying things or using things, having this concept of interdependence a little bit more, I think could serve us, because we want to make it as efficient as possible and not just have rising costs all over the place.
You have to use the mutual aid concept that the fire departments use.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running toward the end of our time, so I just want to kind of go around and have people make any sort of like other things that you thought we would have talked about and we didn't get to, or other kinds of comments that you would like to make. And I guess I'll pick on Leah first.
Sure. No, I don't think I have any real last comments. I just, the one last thing is, for me, in thinking about, all of the benefits that we're talking about, like with the Buy Nothing groups on Facebook and the next door and everything like that, it's wonderful. And yeah, my thoughts just go to what can we do so that the people in our community who need those or could benefit the most from being able to utilize those services maybe aren't there, and how do we get them the access, how do we get them the information and the training that they need to get the fullest benefits out of what the technology that exists.
So inclusion related to technology and services.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't mean to butt in, but I got a pretty hard stop. So I guess my only question would be, is this it, or are you thinking that there'll be any kind of a follow-up discussion, or what are you thinking?
We're going to bring this back to the steering committee. And so I would say if the steering committee feels like there's something more that they want to organize something else about, we will do so. And if they're comfortable that we've got sort of a plateau to move forward from, then this will be it.
I think we could summarize the conversation for the steering committee and think about questions we might want to ask Barton and LoJudas to help us with in terms of trends or data or things that they maybe have access to for communities.
Bill, any parting thoughts for you?
Great discussions. I am excited to be a part of this group more than any of the other focus groups. I think that we have a huge opportunity here to become more efficient. And I think that just the library, the fact of charging stations, we need to move forward quickly. Costs are rising. Inflation is going to be 8 to 10%. Nobody wants their taxes going up 10% next year. So we've got to find ways to work together more effectively and efficiently. And I think the ideas that came out of tonight are exceptional. And I really hope that we can make this more inclusive. Absolutely. Because you know what? I go to the library at least once or twice a week, and I think it's way underutilized. It's a huge resource that we need to, continue to educate. So I'm looking forward to working together to make this happen.
Hey, Bill, can I take you up on your offer to do those next door trainings, and can I have an ask right here on the broadcast for you to do those if we
Yes.
connect? I don't know if you're already doing them with the libraries, but connect with each of the libraries to do those.
Yes.
Or maybe we work with you on a video or something. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that.
Howie, what would you like to end with?
We spoke earlier about futurists, and the problem with technology is, technology these days is not, on a 30-year cycle. It's on a 2 or 3 year cycle. So trying to plan out more than 5 years and not readdressing it, whatever comes out of this, the whole comprehensive plan as it relates to technology, can't be a report that's going to sit on the supervisor's shelf or, in the council room or whatever. You've got to bring either the people who are on the phone or expand into, the many other people who are involved with the STEM fields in the town, and pick their brains and try to get, we don't want to be on the bleeding edge, but, at least on the leading edge of how the town is going to respond to changes in technology. and you don't want to get left behind. I mean, that's really the thing. But it was great discussion. We had a lot of different areas represented tonight. And it was all good.
Thank you all so very much. We truly appreciate it. Sarah, thank you so much for leading us on all these and making them all possible. Thank you also to Allison Weber and all of our colleagues at the town and to Sustainable Manlius for being a really fantastic group of citizens in the community who are leading initiatives forward that we find that we cross over with that group of volunteers very often. And we'll work to get this information out, but for everyone who's watching, thank you very much. And Sarah, any other closing thoughts?
I just want to let everybody know that you can reach us through our website and comprehensive planning at townofmanlius.org. If you have other ideas that we didn't capture, please share.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.